You're listening to episode 95 of the Play Therapy Community Podcast.
Welcome to Play Therapy Community Podcast, providing connection, information, and inspiration to child therapists all around the world. Here's your host, a licensed psychotherapist, a registered play therapist, and my mom, Jackie Flynn.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Play Therapy Community Podcast. It's so nice to be here with you like this. Before we get started with today's conversation, I'm super excited to share with you somebody that's super inspirational to me, and I've recently met and I'm learning about her. But before we jump into that, let me tell you about the Neuroscience of Play Therapy Summit at the Beach. It's coming up in February 17th, 18th, and 19th. Dora Henderson and I are hosting it. It's going to be super fun. We have a whole lineup of play therapy experts that are going to teach us all about neuroscience. We have Claire Mellonton, we have Dr. Janet Courtney, we're going to be on the beach with. We also have Dr. Ileana Gill, Dr. David Crenshaw, Lisa Dion. We have Dr. Robert Jason Grant. He's the creator of All Play. He's incredible. Carmen Jimenez Pride, Dora Henderson and I are going to be there doing the drum circle. We have all kinds of stuff planned, and it's going to be not only informational and experiential, but we're going to have a lot of fun together. So if you would like to learn more about that, visit www.playtherapycommunity.com. Okay, so I can't wait to get started. Let's hop into my conversation with Melissa Levine.
Hi.
Hey, Melissa. Oh, it's so nice to chat with you. We were just chatting before this, and I asked her if she would share this beautiful story on our podcast, and she said yes. So, Melissa, you shared with me a story about really, it brings home, gosh, your first thing is how beautiful of a mom you are and a human being. So amazing. But the power of play therapy, and you notice this because you are play therapist extraordinary. Like you know stuff when you see it. Many parents out there
Right.
may not recognize something like this. So,
Yeah.
well, would you like to introduce yourself before we
Yeah, I'd
start?
love to. So thanks so much, Jackie, for having me today. I'm Melissa Levine. I'm a registered play therapist supervisor. I'm an approved consultant for EMDRIA, and I absolutely love sharing play therapy with the world and with parents, especially not just in the therapeutic space, but just out there who want access to information to be the best kind of parents they can be for their kids. So I love to share this story of a really scary moment that turned into something really incredible. My 18-month-old at the time, she's now 4. She had, I turned around for a second, as moms do, trying to clean up the playroom, not really thinking. And all of a sudden I heard this sound. And as I turned, my daughter had climbed to the top of the stairs to our first landing. I mean, so fast, like warp speed to the top. And she went to grab a puzzle and slipped. And I turned around just at the time to watch her tumble horrifically to the bottom of the steps. And I'm screaming for my husband. We have a plumber in the basement, and I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, call 911, freaking out, crying, just hysterical. Her lip is swollen and she's crying and she's kind of dazed. And we checked in with the doctor and she was okay, but scared. And I was scared, right? And about 2 or 3 days later, I come home from work and I'm walking in the side door, and she's standing at the top of the stairs, a different set behind the gate. And she's throwing her toys, her stuffed animals, her Elmo, her bear, her bunny, all these things down the steps over and over again. And my husband kind of begrudgingly is like, oh, we've been doing this for an hour. Why I don't want to play fetch. Why are we doing this? And I paused and I just went, she's playing about the fall. She's doing the fall. And I immediately knew. I was like, oh, I'm so scared. He fell down the stairs. She just kind of looked at me and she did it again. I said, oh, the bear fell. That must be so scary. Right. And just kind of tracked what was happening, reflecting her language. And then I just scooped up all the stuffies and I said, oh, these are so scared, and carried them into the kitchen. And she's watching me what are you doing, mommy? And carrying them to the kitchen. I get the ice pack out of the freezer, just as we had done that day when she fell, and real carefully, she sits in my lap, like, what are you doing, mommy? And I'm putting the stuffies or the ice pack on the stuffies and holding her and just trying to be as calm and nurturing. Because, of course, in that moment when it actually happened, although I got to calm and nurturing, I was panicked and crying and
Oh,
hysterical, of course, watching your baby tumble down the steps, and just responding in that way. And she kept just really intently playing this game that day. And then for about a week, we played it almost every night, doing the same kind of little thing. And it got shorter each time. And she'd focus in, even as I'm telling a story, my whole body's shaking, right? I'm like
yeah.
feeling the feelings of it. And her daycare teachers told me she was doing a similar kind of play at school. She'd walk across the room and throw the stuffy over the gate and come back. And they're like, what is she doing? I was like, oh, she's playing, but she fell down the stairs. It's okay. She's just working it out. And then after about a week,
God.
she just never again, she didn't play it, and had no fear about the stairs or falling. She's a fearless kid when it comes to climbing and hanging and swinging, and now at 4. But yeah, it just really solidified this idea that play is kids' language. It's their processing tool. It's their learning tool. It's just how they integrate the world, right? And I knew this to my core as a therapist, but to see it through parent eyes was just so amazing. It's so amazing. And I really want parents to be able to harness those skills too, right? Without being a play therapist. So yeah, that's what brought me to my 2 books, my 2 play therapy books out there for parents to learn about these simple skills that can be life-changing for their kids.
Yes, and we'll have links to the those books in the show notes. So I'm thinking about like as far as she's throwing these toys down
Yeah.
and you had the capacity to really recognize that
Mhm.
for what it was.
Right.
Many would not because it would look
Right.
like maybe even like a behavior like, hey, stop
Yeah,
that,
for
don't do
sure.
that. But she was really just playing out what had happened. And
Right.
to me, the way that you responded and allowed that expression to happen. And then I think about like Dr. Becky Welsh just taught me a lot
Mhm.
about the importance of caregiver response.
Yeah.
Not only did you respond to her in a very caring, connected way in the time, but also as she's replaying it and you're helping out
Mhm.
the animals that fall down, it helped process it through. It got shorter and shorter and shorter.
Yeah.
I think about too, like Dr. Gary Lander's early videos. A lot of us
Mhm.
listening to this, if you're a
Yeah.
child therapist or trained in play therapy, you've probably seen a video, a very famous video of him in the playroom with a little girl, just tracking, and that means just being with the
Yeah.
client. And it sounds like that's what happened there.
Mhm.
Just beautiful. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. And
I
it's
think if we can do that as parents, just be with our kids and see them as experiencing the world versus working against us sometimes, right? Sometimes it feels like we're pitted right against our kid because we're rushing them. We got to get them out. We got to get to school, get to the bus, versus they're just living their lives, and we need to come from a place of connection first. That so many times we can, even if we didn't respond perfectly in the moment, because nobody does, right? Even as a child therapist, I mess up all the time. And I'm sure you would say the
me
same
too.
thing, right?
Oh goodness, yes.
But play can create an avenue for us to reconnect and to repair and to respond the way that we wish we would have when we're more regulated, because nobody's regulated all the time.
Ah.
um, which is so powerful, right? Because that's really what is the basis of that healthy parent-child relationship, is that repair.
I just I'd say recently, about a year ago, learned about what happens in the brain with that and the nervous
Mm,
system. Like so we have these 3 states of our nervous system. We have engaged, then we
yeah.
have like the fight or flight, mobilized, and then immobilized is shut down.
Right.
When we have this disruption, it puts us in mobilized, maybe where we're like, oh, I need to defend myself, or maybe even shut down. When that repair attempt is made, it takes us out of that defensive state to where we could be connected again. And
Mhm.
then we interact. So, you know what? I messed up back there. I wish I would have done that differently.
Mhm.
I'm so sorry. Next time I'm going to, that repair attempt is so important. Makes me
Yeah.
think about the still face video. But you know
Yeah.
what, too, which is interesting. Lisa Dion, and I know we were talking about her
Yeah,
before we started recording. We're both huge fans of Lisa Dion. If you don't know about Lisa Dion,
absolutely.
she's in the world of play therapy. She's by far, I would say, it's especially like in my experience, she's been hugely instrumental in my work.
Mhm.
Like she's got a podcast, a book. Well, anyway, in her book, Aggression for Play Therapy, or Aggression in Play Therapy,
In the
in
playroom
the
or in play
mhm,
therapy.
which
Yeah.
is, yeah, Lessons in the Playroom podcast. She talks about regulation as like it would
Mhm.
just need to have connection with it. So our children can be in that immobilized kind of shutdown state, or they can be in that fight or flight and still be regulated as long as they're connected with us. As long as
Right.
there's this, we call it ventral vagal energy. So I
Yeah.
love in her book, Aggression in Play Therapy, where she talks about someone that was always kind of in that sympathetic, like I
Yeah.
think anxious state, actually falling asleep and being able
Mhm.
finally kind of being in that shutdown and
Mhm.
connected and feel safe
Yeah.
in that space. So it can be very
Absolutely.
beautiful. I
Yeah.
love the way you described in your story about like how you recognized it for what it was, and then you every day you allowed that to just
Mhm.
kind of happen. You allowed her to express it as many times as
Yeah.
she needed, and you didn't shut it down.
Yeah. I think just taking that moment to notice once I realized what it was, then, right, I knew, oh, she's just got to play this for a little while. In the same way that she would play, like right now, she just started pre-K, full days every day of the week. And she comes home and we play her whole day, right? You sit here, and I know the kids in the class that aren't listening because sometimes I'm one of them, right? She's, mommy, you're no, but they just, right? They have to work out their experiences in this way that's so natural to them. And if we can pause and just create space for it, and, sometimes we don't have the space in ourselves to allow for that, but if we can, it's just so powerful for kids.
I love, love, love that. I love everything about it. Hey, before we finish up, because I know we're running out of time, I do want to mention your books. I have this one that I'm holding right now, Play
Yeah.
Therapy Activities for Mindfulness, 80 play-based exercises to improve emotional regulation and strengthen parent-child connection, ages 3 through 9. And you have another one that I don't have yet. I'm definitely going to get it. The quality of this book is incredible, and I think
Thank
about,
you.
like, the applicability, like, it's not complex, and they're not, like, full of, a bunch of, like, you need to buy this or that, very
No.
doable.
Yeah, yeah. All basic stuff. It's meant to be accessible for parents with things you would have already had in your house, right? Nothing special. You might need to Google a nursery rhyme in the event you don't already know Farmer in the Dell. Other than that, it's all stuff you should have access to that you typically use. And my first book that came out in 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic, what is 101 play therapy activities. And it's also for ages 3 to 9. There's activities to do on the page in the book with your child, or things that similarly don't use a lot, but are just based in connection and a lot of these core activities that us as play therapists are often asking our families to go home and do. And it's so hard to remember that stuff session to session, right? Or sometimes in session, you're like, I just not sure what I need to do today with this family. I need it to be connection, but what should it be? And pulling from that, everything's broken down in that way in the book. So they're both very similarly set up with really similar intentions. One's just way more focused around mindfulness, which is, that's the newest one.
Oh, I love that, and mindfulness is so powerful. It can actually kind of rewire the brain. It's
Yeah, yeah.
amazing.
It
So,
truly is.
and they're really easy to read. I mean, it's like something that's just you could do it quickly. I'm actually going to use it tomorrow in session. So,
Can't
in
wait to
before,
hear.
I know, I can't wait to. Um, with like some of the activities, I right before we hit record this time, you had accepted my invitation to be a guest on the fourth annual Innovative Child Therapy Symposium. So
Yes,
I'm
I
excited.
can't
That'll be happening
wait.
February 2023. Yes. Thank
Woohoo.
you. All right. So, Melissa, what right below, if you're listening or if you're watching this on YouTube, wherever it's at, you'll see the links to Melissa's books down below. But, Melissa, where else could people go to learn from you or just anything that you have to offer? We'll have put all the links below. Where, what can you
Yeah,
say?
you're welcome to, yeah, check out my website. It's just my first and last name, Melissa Levine, lcsw.com. That's where I have information and links to my books as well. So absolutely check me out online.
Yay, yay. I'm so glad to have met you. I met you through Anne and Annie. I would say they're kind of famous like Prince and
Yes.
I think in the one. So it's Anne Beckley Forrest and Annie Monaco. I love those ladies, but they
Yeah.
introduced me to you and you're a gift to the world and you're definitely a gift to
Thank
our field.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank
Uh,
you for having me. It was so great to chat today.
oh, anytime.